What if I told you that the most respected police officer in a small American town spent over a decade sending innocent people to prison and no one noticed? Officer Daniel Mercer was seen as a hero. He solved cases fast, always found the right suspect, and earned medals for dedication to justice. But behind the scenes, he was hiding something far darker. Whenever a high-profile crime happened, a burglary, an assault, even a homicide, Mercer always found conveniently placed evidence: a dropped wallet, a hidden weapon, a mysterious witness only he talked to. Detectives praised him, prosecutors relied on him, judges trusted him, and for years, innocent people paid the price. But everything began to unravel because of one man, a man Mercer never expected to fight back. This is the story of how a decorated officer built a career on lies, and how the truth finally caught up to him. Officer Mercer had a system, and it worked flawlessly. Whenever he needed a suspect, he chose someone vulnerable, a young man with prior misdemeanors, a loner with no alibi, or anyone the town already distrusted. Then Mercer discovered evidence: a bloody glove under a trash can, a weapon found in a shed, a fingerprint that magically appeared after hours. Crime labs rarely questioned him. Why would they? He was their star officer, always first on scene, always confident in his findings. His testimony alone was enough to send people away for decades. But Mercer made a crucial mistake. He framed the wrong person, someone who refused to accept defeat, someone who understood the system better than Mercer ever imagined. And that man's name was David Hale. David Hale was a mechanic. Quiet, smart, worked long hours, never had trouble with the law. So when police stormed his shop one morning and arrested him for a home invasion he didn't commit, even his co-workers were stunned. Officer Mercer claimed he found David's screwdriver inside the victim's house. He said David fit the profile, and a neighbor saw someone like him. But the victim lived miles away. David had a time-stamped work order proving he was repairing an engine at the exact time of the break-in. Still, Mercer was confident. Too confident. David felt something was wrong, not just with the accusation, but with Mercer's smile in the interrogation room. A smile that said, "You won't win." But David wasn't about to give up. David studied the evidence against him, and something immediately stood out. The screwdriver Mercer found wasn't his. It was the same brand, but David custom-marked all his tools with the small engraved line for grip. This tool didn't have it. When David showed this to detectives, they shrugged. Mercer was trusted. David wasn't. But David pushed harder. He found footage from his shop's security cameras showing he never left during the crime. Yet, somehow, the prosecution didn't care. That's when David realized Mercer wasn't just mistaken. He was doing this on purpose. And if Mercer could plant evidence on him once, he could do it again. David needed help. Real help. David wrote letters to lawyers, journalists, anyone who would listen. Most ignored him, but one didn't. Her name was Laura Bishop, a private investigator known for exposing police misconduct. When she read David's case file, she noticed the same pattern seen in 3 other cases: convenient evidence, no witnesses, and Mercer always first on scene. Laura agreed to meet David. After one conversation, she made a promise. "If he framed you, I will prove it." What she didn't know yet was that Mercer kept meticulous notes, not to protect himself, but because he believed he would never be caught. And those notes would be his downfall. Laura Bishop spent nights studying every case Officer Mercer ever touched. She created a timeline, color-coding crimes by type, location, and severity. A disturbing pattern emerged. Every time Mercer solved a high-profile case, his career advanced. Promotions, awards, media attention. More disturbing? Most suspects had something in common. They were easy to blame. A drifter, a teenage boy with prior misdemeanors, a man who didn't speak English well, and now David Hale. Laura printed mugshots of every person Mercer arrested. When she lined them up on the table, the pattern became impossible to ignore. Mercer wasn't solving crimes. He was assigning guilt. And then she noticed something chilling. 3 cases spread across 8 years where Mercer found the same brand of screwdriver as the mysterious key evidence. Laura whispered to herself, "You've done this before." She picked up the phone and called David. What she found next would prove Mercer wasn't just framing people, he was building an empire on their lives. Laura met with a former officer who had once worked alongside Mercer. He spoke quietly, glancing around the cafe like Mercer might walk in. He said Mercer kept a notebook, a private log no one else on the force was allowed to see. When officers asked what was inside, Mercer always replied, "Insurance." The ex-officer said Mercer kept it locked in his old patrol locker at the precinct. Laura's heart raced. If that notebook contained patterns, names, or timelines, it could be the key to exposing everything. But getting access to it meant infiltrating a police department that still viewed Mercer as a hero. Laura told David, "If we get that notebook, we can break your case wide open." Neither of them knew that Mercer already sensed her involvement, and he was about to make his first move. Laura returned home late one night. Rain tapped violently against her windshield as she pulled into her driveway. That's when she noticed it. A single envelope tucked under her wiper blade. No stamp, no writing. Inside was a folded piece of paper with only 2 typed words. "Stop digging." Laura felt her chest tighten. She scanned the quiet street. No cars, no movement. But she felt eyes on her. She called David immediately. He whispered, "It's him. Mercer knows." Laura realized this was no longer just an investigation. This was a war, and Mercer had been playing it much longer than she had. But instead of backing off, she became more determined, because warnings only come when the truth is getting close. With the help of a sympathetic detective, Laura arranged a reason to visit the precinct as a consultant. Her goal wasn't to consult, it was to find Mercer's locker. The building felt heavy with silence. Awards featuring Mercer's smiling face lined the hallway walls. Laura finally reached the locker room. Rows of old metal doors, rust creeping up the corners. Her contact whispered, "His is number 214. You have 5 minutes." Laura entered the combination the officer had provided. The locker creaked open, and there it was, a small black leather notebook, untitled, unlabeled, well-worn. She reached for it, and suddenly the door to the room slammed shut. Laura jumped, turning fast. The detective she trusted was no longer behind her. She wasn't alone. Officer Mercer stepped into the locker room, blocking the only exit. His expression was calm, too calm. He looked at the open locker, then at Laura holding the notebook. "Curiosity," he said softly, "has a cost." Laura swallowed hard. She wasn't armed. She had no backup. Mercer stepped closer. The fluorescent lights buzzed above them, casting his face in patches of shadow. He whispered, "You're making a mistake, Miss Bishop. People disappear in this town. People nobody misses." But Mercer didn't know. Laura had already hit record on her phone before opening the locker, and everything he said was being captured. The moment Mercer reached for her, another voice echoed from the hallway. "Step away from her, Daniel." A veteran lieutenant, Marcus Green, stood in the doorway with one hand on his holster. Mercer stared at him, stunned. They had worked together for years. "What are you doing, Marcus?" Green replied, "Stopping you before you ruin another life." Laura used the distraction to pocket the notebook. Mercer noticed, but Green stepped between them. The two officers exchanged glares, thick with history, betrayal, and truth. Green whispered to Laura, "Get out, now." Laura ran out of the building, heart pounding, notebook tight in her grip. Behind her, Green and Mercer continued arguing, voices echoing down the hallway. This was the first time someone inside the department had openly challenged Mercer, and Mercer would not forget it. Laura opened the notebook at her kitchen table, hands trembling. Inside were names, dates, crime scenes, details only Mercer could know. But something else stood out, a column labeled Success and another labeled Failure. Under Success, Laura saw the names of people wrongfully convicted. Under Failure, she saw blank spaces, waiting to be filled. The worst part? Mercer had written notes on how he chose victims. Unstable family, prior record, no community support, easily intimidated. Laura whispered, "He built a system, a machine." This notebook wasn't just evidence. It was a blueprint for a decade of corruption. And with it, she had everything she needed to expose him. Just as Laura prepared to bring the notebook to an internal affairs investigator, her phone buzzed. A text message. No number. It read, "David Hale won't make it home tonight." Laura felt her stomach drop. Mercer wasn't hiding anymore. He was retaliating. She called David repeatedly. No answer. Laura jumped into her car and raced toward his house, fear gripping her throat. When she arrived, David's front door was wide open. Lights off, silence. But in the darkness, Laura noticed movement. Someone was inside the house, and they were waiting. Laura stepped into the house cautiously, her phone's flashlight slicing through the dark. "David?" she whispered. No answer. Suddenly, a figure moved at the end of the hallway. Laura froze. Then the lights flicked on. David stood there, shaken but alive. Next to him, Lieutenant Green. Green said, "Mercer sent officers to grab him. I intercepted them." David exhaled shakily. Laura handed him the notebook. His eyes widened as he flipped through it. David whispered, "This can free everyone he framed." But Green warned them, "Mercer knows you have it, and he will burn this town before letting you expose him." Laura, David, and Green delivered Mercer's notebook to the state attorney's office the next morning. The reaction was immediate. Investigators opened old cases. Judges ordered emergency reviews. Families of wrongfully convicted people were contacted for the first time in years. Mercer was arrested, right outside the precinct he once commanded. Officers who worshipped him now watched in stunned silence as their hero was handcuffed and placed in a patrol car. The final blow came when prosecutors charged him with evidence tampering, perjury, malicious prosecution, and conspiracy. His decades-long reign ended in seconds. But the story was not finished yet, because Mercer still had secrets to expose. During sentencing, Mercer finally broke. He admitted he framed people because real investigations took too long, because he wanted faster results, more recognition, a career built on certainty. He said the most chilling words Laura had ever heard. "The system rewards heroes, so I became one." Dozens of cases were overturned. Innocent people were freed. David Hale walked out a free man after surviving the system that tried to destroy him. As Mercer was led away, he looked at Laura and said, "If you hadn't found that notebook, I'd still be untouchable." Laura replied softly, "Your victims finally have justice." The courtroom fell silent, and the legacy of the officer who fooled an entire town came to a long overdue end. If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Let's start the conversations that matter, the ones that lead to real change. And if you'd like more stories that challenge us, inspire us, and remind us of what we're capable of when we stand for what's right, subscribe to the channel. Your support helps bring more stories like this to light.